Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down industry headlines and, most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. What do I mean when I say that? I mean, I only speak to transportation professionals on this show and my twice-a-week long-form podcast, you guys, because I want to put the right information out there from the people who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can apply, utilize, and see a meaningful difference in your business, in your life. It's one of the many reasons why I proudly fly this American flag behind me every single day. A, we're the greatest nation on earth, but B, I'm living my American dream, and I want to help each and every one of you live yours as well. I do have a guest to bring on. We have a doozy of a topic to talk about today. It's something that, we speak on, pretty frequently on this show in regards to theft and all of that fun stuff that is going on in this industry. And we're going to bring him up in a second. But before I do, as always, you guys, I got to give a shout out to my friends over at VHub, vhubapp.com. Whether you're a broker, carrier, or a shipper, we all need access to trailers. And the best part, you guys get paid to move these things. That's right. That's on top of the revenue you can get by loading these trailers out is you jump on VHub and get going. So with what they have working is they got Stoughton, Wisconsin going over to Milton, Ontario, you guys, and you get paid $350 US to do that. And there's about 140 trailers over there, you guys. So you can reposition these down into the Chicago market, or you know what, you can offer an enterprise sales solution to some of those shippers that might require a drop trailer. They also have a bunch of trailers out in San Diego going to multiple locations throughout the US, you guys, and it ranges anywhere from $1,100 to $2,200 per trailer. That's right. Yeah, that's real. And they go all over Michigan, Mississippi, Ohio, Texas, North Carolina, Georgia, Virginia. And then finally, they have Paragould, Arkansas going up to Mississauga, Ontario, and you get $736 US per trailer on that, you guys. So hit them up, vhubapp.com. My friends Zach Lonergan and Stacy Steen, they'll be in the audience. Just do me a favor, let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. Comments are blowing up, which is not surprising at all because of the topic we're going to be doing and discussing here in depth. So without further ado, I got Kyle Graves coming on here to talk about some shit. So Kyle, this is your first time on the show, so let everybody know who you are and all that.
Yeah, so thanks for having me, Chris. Appreciate you inviting me to talk about this. I'm the CEO, owner of Synergy Freight. We're a small freight agency based out of New Hampshire and Arizona, kind of snowbird. But yeah, we're just a small agency. We do just domestic transportation, flatbed, dry van, reefer, that type of thing. Really kind of just your typical small agency in America, just trying to put food on the table and provide people with meaningful employment. And like you said, Chris, just trying to chase our dreams here in the greatest country in the world.
Yeah, amen to that, man. Yeah, dude, it's, because I think the first post I saw you put up about this the other day was on Facebook, and it was a few days ago, and it was kind of the beginning. And then I saw you put like a follow-up post about what was going on, and I'm like, fuck. And then I just sent you a DM last night. I'm like, dude, we got to talk about this because freight theft is something that has been around for a very long time. This might hurt some of your guys' feelings, but criminals don't care about the law. So let's just put that out there right away. They actually don't follow it for a reason. But these things, the majority of them that we come into are, it's commodity specific, for example, and there's some certain regions that have higher freight theft trends than the others. And, and then we talk about double brokering quite frequently because there's been a massive rise in it. And you see a lot of this stuff increase when the markets are the way that they are right now. And that's what I've seen throughout my career. And I think that, and we were talking a few months ago, and a lot of it was because I call out all the bullshit in regards to the how those loads in LA last year that happened to be on national news. They just happened to know which rail car to pop into to take all the fucking TVs out. Like that's not that's not by chance, right? Like it is highly organized. Organized crime is very much involved in this shit, and they're constantly evolving in stuff like that. So it's like at the end of the day, we have to talk about what are some identifiers? What can we do to minimize it or like pick up on a lot of this stuff to really try and protect our customers, our businesses, and then frankly, in some of these instances, the trucking companies who are actually hauling these double brokered loads that aren't going to get paid, that are going to get hosed out on the money, and that are going to, you know, unfortunately, in some of these cases, are going to go out of business.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really a perverse problem, and I had this issue a couple weeks ago. Somebody took a load from North Carolina, sent it to California. It was supposed to go to Pennsylvania, and their intent was to send it to California, send it to a warehouse, steal the freight. Thankfully, I got the police there, Rancho Cucamonga PD. Shout out to you guys. You guys were there in 30 minutes. We were able to stop it. But that driver, like I was telling you last night, Chris, that driver said to me, man, he said, I'm not going to get paid for this load. And I said, you're probably not, because it was booked through a fake Landstar, Raycon, or something like that, where they were just spoofing it. And he said, this is going to kill me. This is going to kill my business. He said, I'm on my last leg, and if I don't get this $5,000, I'm done. So cargo theft and these scams, it does affect a lot of the brokers, but it also affects carriers. It affects everybody. It affects shippers. It affects consumers. It affects the country as a whole. And that's why it's really I'm so passionate about it, because everybody's a victim of this. You know, we even see it in inflation numbers. You know, this kind of theft that's going to cause inflation to go up. We see it in the retail space, Target, Walmart, all the retail thefts that are going up. That's just going to drive our cost up. And then fellow Americans are going to have less money, less disposable income to spend on things. So it's a really, really big problem in the industry. And I think that, you know, there just needs to be more done to try to tackle it, to prevent it. But I think that a lot of logistics companies like ours and yours and everybody else's, you know, we're at a little bit of a disadvantage to these criminals, because they kind of know how to skirt the edge and how to kind of do things just so to stay out of really the criminal aspect of it and kind of ride the line between criminal and civil. And I think that that's a big issue with it. And that's really what this cargo theft ring that I was posting about is doing recently, is they're kind of riding that line between extortion and criminal and civil, and they're just kind of in that gray.
Yeah. And it's like, again, because I look at it, like, I'm not sympathizing with anything, but I look at it as it's like the accountability, the lack of accountability is there. And it's very well known that, hey, you know what, we can kind of just fucking do what we want because no one's going to do anything about it. Right. And for me, it is one of those situations that is, you know, it starts at the top. It, you know, like you see the FMCSA and the DOT put out stuff all the time on, hey, we're putting a questionnaire out there. We're opening this up for comments and stuff. And then nothing comes of that, and it stops. And it's very well publicized. So it's like, from that aspect of things, it's like they know nothing's going to be done, right? Because otherwise, I think that they would, you know, either change up their tactics, because a lot of this shit has been going on forever, right? Like, I remember back in the day, because like my old man was an owner op. He owned his own trucking company for 40 years. Dude, the stories he had of how shit used to go back in the 70s and the 80s, eerily similar to how things are going on right now on a lot of stuff. And it's like, again, there's no, nobody challenges it. Nobody does anything about it. It's a lot of talk. And I feel like that's what most people, like, when it comes down to it, that's what DC is notorious for. They fucking talk and do nothing about what they could do. Like, they could do something about this. They really could, but it's not going to happen because it affects their bottom line.
Yeah. And shout out to Brandon for the Slack call out. Sorry, we're Slackaholics over here, so notifications going off like crazy. But yeah, you're totally right. I spent an hour yesterday speaking with the FBI Boston. I gave them pretty much a docket with 50 MCs, with 12 other brokers who have loads stolen, 30 loads stolen, driver's licenses, driver information, dispatch. Like, I think a 10-year-old could probably investigate this case with the information that I've given them and understand what's going on. And the frustrating part is, they don't even don't even open a case. There's no case number. They just intake the information. Somebody will reach out to you at some point, possibly, maybe not. And that's just kind of it. So a lot of the government agencies just kind of kick the can down the road. Local police says, oh, you got to contact where it delivered. Delivery police says you got to contact where it picked up. Everybody's just kind of like, this is something that we don't really want to investigate. And nobody's really willing to put their foot down and say, enough is enough. Like, somebody's got to handle this. Somebody's got to deal with it, because if not, this problem's only going to get worse.
Yeah. No, it's very true, man. Because it's like, we're not going to publicly mention any of these companies on this show, you guys, because like all of this shit's still going on, right? And I'm not going to put anybody, Kyle's organization or any of these other organizations at risk of something happening here, because like it still needs to get resolved. But it's more about, you guys, we're bringing awareness to like what actually happened in this, and how can you identify a lot of these things. And, a lot of it to me is, and Kyle, like we were talking last night, is it's like, hey, that the vetting process of things, because like I used, because I checked all of those MCs and everything, and none of them would have been able to even get set up on my software platform with Broker Carrier, because we have security measures in place that, we don't advertise, right? Because like, we don't want people to know how we vet to find out the legitimacy of a lot of these things. And my business partner he can talk about that further if he wants, but I'm trying not to oversell shit. I'm really fucking bad at overselling, putting stuff out there. But needless to say, we have some security steps that are in place that avoids a lot of this shit from even getting to where they can get set up, and then when it comes to like monitoring in everything that's out there, because like you were talking about, one of them, man, they bought a clean MC. Like they bought a clean MC. So like monitoring software wouldn't have caught that, because it shows that they're a good carrier out there. And yeah, man, it's not so like kind of, divulge however much you want about this. But yeah, if you want to, I'll stop talking so you can run.
You're good. I'll kind of explain just sort of what this scam entails. And yeah, you're right. The MC that they're using to pick up these loads it was an MC that they had purchased recently. It has, numerous freight guards on it now. Nobody would ever book it now, but it got through compliance at, some of the biggest brokerages, one of the largest freight forwarders in the world. It got through their compliance. And the guy who I was talking to said, man, our compliance is so strict. 9 out of 10 carriers we reject are legit carriers. He just said that our compliance is that strict. So they can get through. They're smart, and they know how to do it. And they're basically taking a lot of trailers. So they're picking up loadout trailers, and they're loading them up with freight, putting them on the rail, and then they're holding them hostage, holding them, for ransom, essentially, to get you to pay all of the money cash up front, or potentially a little bit more. And they're also part of a kind of an organized group where if you put a freight guard on one, they'll go and hold your stuff hostage and make you take that freight guard off to get your freight back. So that way they can start using that MC again to scam, and then get a couple more weeks out of it. They buy new ones. So it's just this huge kind of organization that's doing it. And I think a lot of it is due to the rate market. I would guess this is probably a legitimate carrier that fell on hard times that's now trying to take their revenge, so to speak.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're just taking trailers and railing them. And, I think that the drivers who are picking up are in on the scam and are aware of it. The ones who are delivering are not, because they're worried about potentially police or FBI or somebody waiting at delivery. So they're using outside carriers that they're going to end up not paying. And using, brand new loadout trailers they're putting on the rail. I mean, there's so many areas that this is wrong, where the trailers are going to get damaged on the rail. They don't have lift pads. They're, potentially could go missing. So it's a very, very big scam. But from what everybody that I've talked to who's dealing with them, they're just essentially railing the stuff. And then obviously there's going to be rate reductions from the customers, things like that. And they're making you pay them up front. And one broker actually told me yesterday, and he followed up this morning, they're sending over a letter to him from their lawyers, making them sign something that does not hold them liable, that says that they were not extorted, that they were not held hostage, and that they will not sue them, which to me is like, how bold and brazen are you to steal millions of dollars of stuff, and then you're going to send people a letter saying, don't sue us after this. Like it just blows my mind.
Yeah. And like when we were chatting last night, I've dealt with that in the past where it was that's what happened was they took the load, they held it hostage. And then we had to pay them to release the trailer. But then there was an NDA that was signed that stated we could not file anything against their company, or they wouldn't they wouldn't release the trailer and do it. So again, it's just, and it came from their attorney, and everything else. Their insurance company was probably involved in a lot of this as well. And it's like in those moments, you're like, what do I do? Like, I don't have the alternative to purchase the entire shipment because, because like some of these companies, again, like that it doesn't get out into the public. Some companies have where they're like, fuck it, keep the load. I'll just pay the $90,000 claim or whatever that looks like. And then I'll move on with my life. But that's not the reality for a lot of companies. So it's like, they're looking at this and it's like, they're in a tough situation. They're in a really tough situation. And then a lot of it boils down to, are you always doing your due diligence out there? Because like we all get busy, like when we're booking loads and everything. And you know what? I feel like, and I talk about this, is they're looking for that person who's just like, it picks your delivery, this is what it is, this is what it pays, take it or leave it style thing. And they're like, oh, I'll do it for less than that. Hey, you want to pay $2,000 on, man, you know what? I'll do it for $1,800. And the rep might be like, well, shit, this sounds like a great deal. Like, I'm going to make more money. And then you're going to roll with it. And then it ends up on the rail. And then it ends up in other scenarios that are like this, and, like when you're talking about how you think like the drivers and shit are on it, man, I would even go as deep as the dock worker at the warehouse or the security guard at the warehouse where some of this shit is getting loaded at. They're all in on the tape because again, I have seen thousands and thousands of shipments moved in my career. How they just happen to know where like the energy drinks are, the fucking medical equipment. It's not an accident, right? Yeah. Like we got to remove the fact that we think that this is just random acts. It is not a fucking accident.
Yeah, no, it's not. And especially like our loads, retail goods. It's like stuff that you'd buy from Amazon or Walmart or Target. It's stuff like that. So it's stuff that's kind of easy to steal, easy to sell. It's not like there's serial numbers on, a coffee maker or something like that. So you can just sell it and get your money out of it. Thankfully, I think that this ring is not actually trying to end up stealing the cargo to resell. I think they're just trying to rail things and then hold things hostage to get their payment because they know they're going to get rate reduced to high heavens because the loads are a week late or 2 weeks late. But some of the trailers, some of the loads they've had for 60 days, 70 days that they're going on, and still haven't released them. So yeah, in our situation, we have located a couple of our loads, and I won't really go into how we have located them, but we have located them, and we're working to secure them physically right now, but we still have another load that's out there, and we don't have the physical location of it. So that's kind of the concern. And like you were talking about, some of the bigger brokerages, the 3-letter acronym brokerages out there, they can just say, oh, 90 grand, we'll just take a little bit of a hit on our EBITDA this quarter and move on. But smaller folks like me, $90,000 is usually more than we have in our bank at any one given time. So it's just kind of a tough situation to be in as a smaller broker. And like you said before, it's the agents get excited about it, reps get excited about it, booking the loads. These are California outbound loads, which have been tight lately. So, they're kind of taking advantage of that. But like I told you last night, I might not handle compliance directly for each carrier in my company, but at the end of the day, since I am the leader of my company, compliance stops with me, and I failed to do enough due diligence in this situation to prevent this issue from happening. So I do definitely take responsibility for that. But, I think it just goes to show with them getting through with so many big brokers, hundreds of millions of dollars brokerages, they obviously figured out some kink in the armor in compliance, and they figured out some crack to go in. And I think buying the MC was probably it. It was a legitimate MC. So that's kind of just the issue in this. And I think prevention is probably the most important part, but also, like we say in freight and logistics all the time, if you're reactive, you're screwed. You have to be proactive on things. But at the same time, as an industry, we can only be so proactive. These things are going to happen, and we need to have some support from some government agency or from something to be that reactive force when it does happen, to be able to fix these things, to secure them, because that's really what's going to stop those scammers. The more that we can prevent this, the more that we can recover these things, the less money that they get out of it, the less that they're going to do it. And right now, this scam ring has probably gotten paid 6 figures this week from extorting people. That's only going to be holding them to do it more and more and more.
Yeah. And I think, like, again, because I'm sure I can't keep up with the comments, you guys. I would love to be able to answer all of this. But I think that one thing is like there are specific lanes out there where this behavior is very notorious on, very, very notorious on, you guys. Commodity specific in a lot of these situations. So it's like, if you're looking at your book of business right now and you're moving retail goods, you're moving, bottled beverages, energy drinks, stuff like that. If you don't have any security measures in place from your shipper, this is a great time to start, you guys. This is a great time to start about what you could do to help mitigate some of this stuff. Because again, this is going to go on. Like there's not one solution that's going to be like all the criminals will be like, God, you know what? You guys are right. We're going to stop doing this now. You brought up some good points. But what can you do today is it's like, I truly feel if you're moving some of these commodities out of because it's very well published and publicized out there what cities and even what fucking districts inside of these cities have hotbeds for freight. So if you have freight picking up out of those areas, Southern California, massive hotbed, what are you doing to ensure that the carriers that we're booking on that is the trucking company that you're booking? After they get loaded, what is your security steps in place to ensure that, they're not doing certain things that are red flags that are out there? I know with some of the energy drink freight that I've moved in the past, you can't stop for a minimum of 250 miles. Minimum of 250 miles, you can't stop, and you have to check, and there has to be tracking. There has to be stuff that goes on with this. So again, it's look at your operation right now, and if you've fallen victim to this, or you've been exposed to this, or maybe you've kind of gotten away with it for a little bit, but that, hey, there's probably some shit going on here. You got to stop with it, because that's going to deter a lot of it. And again, I talk about this a lot. It's very hard to negotiate with somebody who knows what they're talking about. You have to have in-depth conversations with your providers. The same thing for every single driver out there who's fallen victim to the double brokering thing, right? Where they're not getting paid that $5,000 of what Kyle was talking about there from that carrier. Vet your brokers. Vet them until the nth degree.
Yeah, and I will say, even on the shipper side of things, I think there's a lot that shippers can do. I will say that one of the things that, we have 3 loads that are being held. 2 of them we've been able to locate, 1 we haven't. The reason why is because the shipper took pictures of the trailer, of the license plate, and the truck. The other shipper did not. So even it goes as far as to the shippers, to the warehouses. If they're taking photos, driver's license, we got 2 of the driver's license, we got 2 of the trailers, 2 of the trucks, license plates. The other one, we don't have any of that information, and that's why we're in a worse situation. So I think it's everybody who needs to do their part in this to try to prevent these things from happening. And the more information that you can collect, the more information that you can get, the better. Like we were talking about last night, Chris, the phone numbers is a big thing. We don't dispatch any trucks that have VoIP phone numbers. Everybody uses VoIP now. I get it, but we only dispatch loads to T-Mobile, AT&T, Verizon, U.S. cell phone carriers, not even landlines. If you give us a landline, how does a driver have a landline?
Do they even exist anymore? Landlines are still a thing? Are landlines still a thing?
I guess so. Some of the older people, but yeah, we look at that kind of stuff. The phone lines are a big thing, because usually, the double brokers are overseas a lot of times, and the guy sitting next to them in the seat is the quote unquote driver, and he has a VoIP line because he's not in the United States, and you can't use a Verizon or AT&T phone because it wouldn't have service in Armenia or wherever they are. So that's something that we've seen, and that's saved our butt a lot of times. But then carriers, people know those things and they start doing things differently, or they have a friend or something in the United States that can give them a phone number or something. Hey, if somebody calls, act like you're a driver. But I think it's really just having many, many steps in compliance. And I know that we're revamping our compliance because of this, and trying to figure out how we can better protect ourselves, better protect our customers. But I think it's really kind of a team effort. It requires leadership at brokerages. It requires agents. It requires training. It requires, team leads, the operations manager, the shipper. It requires everybody to be aware of this issue and working together to try and prevent the fraud.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. And I think that is something that more and more as an industry, we need to continue to talk about, right? Because these are people's livelihoods that are on the line, like these owner operators that are out there, and even small brokers that are out there. Everybody who's got a vested interest in this freight it's always, what more can you do today? Right? Like, what more can you do today to avoid a lot of this? And if you're in that trap, like I've seen some comments where it's like, people are like, oh, it's tough out there. How do I get shipper? Like the frustration. I get the excitement of, oh, I finally got a load. Oh, this carrier is going to do it for a lot cheaper. Something doesn't seem right, but I'm just going to roll the dice. I think that you really, one big piece of advice: trust your gut. All right. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. All right. And you can start there. And then, furthermore, what can you do at the shippers? What can you do at the receivers? Stuff like that. Pictures are everything. Photos of their VIN numbers on the trucks. Verify all of this information. This is why it's like, I'm a firm believer as a broker, me being the one who calls the insurance company to verify information, especially on the first load, on the first couple of loads. I'm verifying their insurance policy. I'm verifying the VIN numbers that are associated with that stuff. You have to do it, you guys. It's your fucking livelihood at the end of the day, right? Like, somebody might be like, oh, that's a little intrusive. If it's going to be my family not eating or yours, I'm going to fight like fucking hell to make sure it's your family that's not going to eat. I'm going to do everything in my power to protect my business, my investment, and everything else. Just like every trucking company out there, you need to do the exact same thing. All right. Ask for more information from your brokers. If they can't provide it, don't take the fucking freight.
Absolutely. And we also talked about the impersonation scams, another big one that's going on, where a lot of people are calling in with, xjycarrier@gmail.com. And they're picking a big carrier with 100, 200 trucks, hoping they're already set up with you. And they're hoping that the agent just says, oh, yeah, I see you here, XJY carrier set up, good to go. What's your email? I'll send it over to you. And it's a complete scam. It's an imposter. It's not the real carrier. So if you see somebody emailing you from an @Gmail and you pull up the carrier and see that they have an actual domain, you need to reach out to that carrier and call their main line. Be like, hey, somebody's communicating with us from this email. Is that legit? And most of the time it's not. And that's what we're seeing a lot with those bigger carriers is the impersonation scam. And that's even worse than the situation that we're in, because when that happens, you have no idea who picked up the load. And that carrier that they impersonated is not a actor in the fraud. That's actually another victim in the situation.
Yeah.
So you end up really having nothing. And that's why it's important that those shippers take those photos. And I will say, as far as the VoIP line thing, not every single carrier that has VoIP lines is fraud or is a scam. Sometimes you come across carriers that say, hey, look, we got 50 trucks. We don't want our drivers to get bothered. We give them all VoIP lines. That way they can shut it off at night, turn it back on in the morning, still have their own cell phone. That's fine. In those situations, you just ask them, can you give me the driver's real cell phone number so I can pull it up and see that it's actually, a US carrier phone line? And if they're not willing to do that, well, that kind of says it all. We just DNU those carriers. If you just have VoIP lines, you can't provide us a US cell phone, like, we don't want to work with you. It's not worth the risk.
Yeah. And I think that, for the carriers that are out there, like this is your opportunity to, like, I understand the whole, you don't want the big brother fucking looking over your shoulder style mentality. I get it. I don't want anybody to fucking do that to me either. But I feel like right now more than ever, this is an opportunity for you to stand out and to show like, hey, you guys, this is what we're doing to ensure that that you're working with us and everything. And, I try and keep these shows to about 30 minutes here because everybody who watches the show has a job or they're building their company. And I try and be mindful of everybody's time. But, again, I'm out there actively fighting this. Again, my company, Broker Carrier, we have this in place to protect not only our users from this, but to also highlight the right carriers that are legitimate. We are doing that to prop them up as well, right? Like it's not hey, we're just focused on one side of it because, again, I'm vested into the driver community. No, I don't own trucks, but at the end of the day, man, I come from a family of truck drivers. I want to help that small mom and pop operation out there stand out. And I'm committed to it. I put my money where my mouth is as my business partner did in this, and we're fighting this shit. We're fighting to protect the integrity of this fucking industry at the end of the day. So, Kyle, if anybody might be going through something similar to you right now, and they're like, fuck, I think I might have this going on, how can they reach out?
Yeah, reach out to me, Kyle, at gosynergyfreight.com. You can even call me, 480-721-7206. Call me. I have a bunch of information. We can work together, share what we know. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that you'll have that I don't have, and there's a lot of stuff I have you don't have. And if we just work together on this, we're going to have the best shot at getting our freight. And I can probably help you if you have pictures of the trailers or something like that. I can probably locate your freight within a few minutes and tell you where it's at, and we can start rolling the authorities there or a truck or something. And also, there's a group of senators right now trying to push for a cargo theft task force in Congress. I think Rick Scott's one of them in Florida, Mike Braun in Indiana. Forget what the Illinois senator's name is, but they're all the sponsors of that bill. So if you guys have some time and want to try and push things forward, I think that's another good place to go because they're trying to help us out right now with legislation in Congress and things like that. And they need us to kind of make some noise to help them show the rest of the people in Congress that, hey, this is a big issue. This is not some little thing that's happening. Like, this is a big problem in our country. And if we don't do something, it's going to get worse. And it's going to start impacting, everybody's ability to do what we want to here. We all want the ability to chase life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And Amen. This is going to impact that. So I appreciate your time, Chris. I know that we're a little bit over, but yeah, if anybody needs anything, anyone has any issues, reach out. And like I told you before, Chris, my old operations manager from the old company that I worked out reached out to me this morning and said, "Is it this carrier?" I said, "Yep." He said, "They got 5 of our loads hostage right now too." So it's all over.
Yeah. And, and again, I think it's important not to overly publicize what this is because the identity of this, because it's like, you don't want to tip anybody off, right? Like you don't want to tip anybody off and then, shit goes south, right? Like I feel like being out there and then communicating and sharing information and stuff out there is going to be the best way to go about this. And again, track everything, do all of that. But that's going to be it for today, you guys. We'll be back tomorrow. Fridays are all Q&A, right? Sales and operation. You guys bring the Q's. I bring the A's every single Friday out there for sales and operations related questions. So we'll be back tomorrow. And as always, if you saw value in this, you guys subscribe and share the show. Rank the show. If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe. If you're hitting the audio only replay on iTunes and Spotify, subscribe and rank that show out there if you got value in it, you guys. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Thanks.
And now, Kyle, we just awkwardly